and welcome to Bookspot. I'm Earl Weinberg. This time we will continue our reading of Have Spacesuit Will Travel by Robert Heinlein. Our hero, Kip, has entered a contest to win a trip to the moon. Chapter 2. First I went sky high with excitement, then as far down with depression. I didn't win contests. Why, if I bought a box of Cracker Jack, I'd get one they forgot to put a prize in. I'd been cured of matching pennies. If I ever— Stop it, said Dad. I shut up. There is no such thing as luck. There is only adequate or inadequate preparation to cope with a statistical universe. Do you intend to enter this? Do I? I assume that to be affirmative. Very well, make a systematic effort. I did, and Dad was helpful. He didn't just offer me more meatloaf. But he saw to it that I didn't go to pieces. I finished school and sent off applications for college and kept my job. I was working after school that semester at Charton's Pharmacy, soda jerk, but also learning about pharmacy. Mr. Charton was too conscientious to let me touch anything but packaged items, but I learned materia medica and nomenclature and what various antibiotics were for and why you had to be careful. That led into organic chemistry and biochemistry, and he lent me Walker Boyd and Asimov. Biochemistry makes atomic physics look simple, but presently it began to make sense. Mr. Charton was an old widower, and pharmacology was his life. He hinted that someone would have to carry on the pharmacy someday, some young fellow with a degree in pharmacy and devotion to the profession. He said that he might be able to help such a person get through school. If he had suggested that I could someday run the dispensary at Luna Base, I might have taken the bait. I explained that I was dead set on spacing, and engineering looked like my one chance. He didn't laugh. He said I was probably right, but I shouldn't forget that wherever man went, to the moon or Mars or the farthest stars, pharmacists and dispensaries would go along. Then he dug out books for me on space medicine, Strughold and Haber and Stapp and others. I once had ideas along that line, Kip, he said quietly, but now it's too late. Even though Mr. Charton was not really interested in anything but drugs, we sold everything the drugstores sell, from bicycle tires to home permanent kits, including soap, of course. We were selling darned little Skyway soap. Centerville is conservative about new brands. I'll bet some of them make their own soap. But when I showed up for work that day, I had to tell Mr. Charton about it. He dug out two dust covered boxes and put them on the counter. Then he phoned his jobber in Springfield. He really did right by me. He marked Skyway soap down to almost cost and pushed it, and he almost always got the wrappers before he let the customers go. Me, I stacked a pyramid of Skyway soap on each end of the fountain, and every Coke was accompanied by a spiel for good old Skyway, the soap that washes cleaner, is packed with vitamins, and improves your chances of heaven. Not to mention its creamy lather, fine ingredients, and refusal to take the Fifth Amendment. Oh, I was shameless. Anybody who got away without buying was deaf or fast on his feet. If he bought soap without leaving the wrappers, he was a magician. Adults, I talked out of it. Kids, if I had to, I paid a penny for each wrapper. If they brought in wrappers from around town, I paid a dime a dozen and threw in an ice cream cone. The rules permitted a contestant to submit any number of entries as long as each was written on a Skyway soap wrapper or a reasonable facsimile. I considered photographing one and turning out facsimiles by the gross, but Dad advised me not to. It is within the rules, Kip, but I've never yet known a skunk to be welcome at a picnic. So I used soap, and I sent in wrappers with slogans. I use Skyway soap because it makes me feel so clean. Highway or byway, there's no soap like Skyway. Its quality is sky high. It is pure as the Milky Way. It is pure as interstellar space. It leaves me fresh as a rain-swept sky. And so on endlessly until I tasted soap in my dreams. Not just my own slogans either. Dad thought them up, and so did Mother and Mr. Charton. I kept a notebook and wrote them down in school or at work or in the middle of the night. I came home one evening and found that Dad had set up a card file for me, and after that I kept them alphabetically to avoid repeating. Good thing, too, for toward the last I sent in as many as 100 a day, postage mounted, not to mention having to buy some wrappers. Other kids in town were in the contest and probably some adults, but they didn't have the production line I had. I'd leave work at 10 o'clock, hurry home with the day's slogans and wrappers, pick up more slogans from dad and mother, then use a rubber stamp on the inside of each wrapper. I use Skyway soap because, with my name and address. As I typed, dad filled out the file cards. Each morning I mailed a bunch on my way to school. I got laughed at, but the adults most inclined to kid me were the quickest to let me have their wrappers. All but one, an oaf called Ace Quiggle. I should not class Ace as an adult. He was an overage juvenile delinquent. I guess every town has at least one Ace. He hadn't finished Centerville High, a distinction since Mr. Hanley believed in promoting everybody to keep age groups together. As far back as I remember, Ace hung around Main Street, sometimes working, mostly not. He specialized in wit. He was at our fountain one day, using up $2 worth of space and time for one 35-cent malt. I had just persuaded old Mrs. Jenkins to buy a dozen cakes and had relieved her of the wrappers. As she left, Ace picked one off my counter and said, "You selling these, Space Cadet?" "That's right, Ace. You'll never find such a bargain again. You expect to go to the moon just selling soap, Captain? Or should I say, Commodore?" That's how Ace laughed, like a comic strip. "I'm trying," I said politely. "How about some?" "Sure. It's good soap?" "Positive." "Well, I'll tell you, just to help you out, I'll buy one bar." A plunger. But this might be the winning wrapper. "Sure thing, Ace. Thanks a lot." I took his money, he slipped the cake into his pocket, and started to leave. "Just a second, Ace. The wrapper? Please?" He stopped. "Oh, yeah." He took out the bar, peeled it, held up the wrapper. "You want this?" "Yes, Ace, thanks." "Well, I'll show you how to get the best use of it." He reached across to the cigar lighter on the tobacco counter and set fire to it, lit a cigarette with it, let the wrapper burn almost to his fingers, dropped it, and stepped on it. Mr. Charton watched from the window of the dispensary. Ace grinned. "Okay, Space Cadet?" I was gripping the ice cream scoop, but I answered, "Perfectly okay, Ace. It's your soap." Mr. Charton came out and said, "I'll take the fountain, Kip. There's a package to deliver." That was almost the only wrapper I missed. The contest ended May 1st, and both Dad and Mr. Charton decided to stock up and cleaned out the last case in the store. It was almost 11 before I had them written up. Then Mr. Charton drove me to Springfield to get them postmarked before midnight. I had sent in 5,782 slogans. I doubt if Centerville was ever so scrubbed. The results were announced on the 4th of July. I chewed my nails to the elbows in those 9 weeks. Oh, other things happened. I graduated, and Dad and Mother gave me a watch, and we paraded past Mr. Hanley and got our diplomas. It felt good, even though what Dad had persuaded me to learn beat what I had learned at dear old Center 6 ways from zero. Before that was sneak day and class honeymoon and senior prom and the class play and the junior senior picnic and all the things they do to keep the animals quiet. Mr. Charton let me off early if I asked, but I didn't ask often as my mind wasn't on it and I wasn't going steady anyhow. I had been earlier in the year, but she, Elaine McMurdy, wanted to talk boys and clothes, and I wanted to talk space and engineering, so she put me back in circulation. After graduation, I worked for Mr. Charton full time. I still didn't know how I was going to college. I didn't think about it. I just dished Sundays and held my breath until the 4th of July. It was to be on television at 8 p.m. We had a TV, a black and white flat image job, but it hadn't been turned on in months. After I built it, I lost interest. I dug it out, set it up in the living room, and tested the picture. I killed a couple of hours adjusting it, then spent the rest of the day chewing nails. I couldn't eat dinner. By 7:30, I was in front of the set, not watching a comedy team and fiddling with my file cards. Dad came in, looked sharply at me, and said, "Take a grip on yourself, Kip. Let me remind you again that the chances are against you." I gulped. "I know, Dad. Furthermore, in the long run, it won't matter. A man almost always gets what he wants badly enough. I am sure you will get to the moon someday, one way or the other." "Yes, sir. I just wish they would get it over with." "They will. Coming, Emma?" "Right away, dearest," Mother called back. She came in, patted my hand, and sat down. Dad settled back. Reminds me of election nights. Mother said, "I'm glad you're no longer up to your ears in that." "Oh, come now, sweetheart. You enjoyed every campaign." Mother sniffed. The comics went back where comics go. Cigarettes did a can, then dived into their packs, while a soothing voice assured us that carcinogenic factors were unknown in coronets, the safe, safe, safe smoke with the true tobacco flavor. The program cut to the local station. We retreated to a thrilling view of Center Lumber and Hardware, and I started pulling hairs out of the back of my hand. The screen filled with soap bubbles. A quartet sang that this was the Skyway Hour, as if we didn't know. Then the screen went blank and sound cut off, and I swallowed my stomach. The screen lit up with "Network difficulties. Do not adjust your sets." I yelped. "Oh, they can't do that. They can't." Dad said, "Stop it, Clifford." I shut up. Mother said, "Now, dearest, he's just a boy." Dad said, "He is not a boy, he is a man. Kip, how do you expect to face a firing squad calmly if this upsets you?" I mumbled. He said, "Speak up." I said I hadn't really planned on facing one. "You may need to someday. This is good practice. Try the Springfield channel. You may get a skip image." I tried, but all I got was snow and a sound like two cats in a sack. I jumped back to our local station. General Bryce Gilmore, United States Air Force, our guest tonight, who will explain to us later in this program some hitherto unreleased pictures of Federation Luna Base and the infant Luna City, the fastest growing little city on the moon. Immediately after announcing the winners, we will attempt a television linkage with Luna Base through the cooperation of the Space Corps of the. I took a deep breath and tried to slow my heartbeat, the way you steady down for a free throw in a tie game. The gavel dragged on while celebrities were introduced, the contest rules were explained, an improbably sweet young couple explained to each other why they always used Skyway soap. My own sales talks were better. At last they got it. 8 girls paraded out, each held a big card over her head. The MC said in an awestruck voice, and now, the winning Skyway slogan for the free trip to the moon." I couldn't breathe. The girls sang, "I like Skyway soap because," and went on, each turning her card as a word reached her. "It is as pure as the sky itself." I was fumbling cards. I thought I recognized it, but couldn't be sure, not after more than 5,000 slogans. And I found it and checked the cards the girls were holding. "Dad, Mother, I've won! I've won!" Chapter 3. "Hold it, Skip," Dad snapped. "Stop it." Mother said, "Oh dear." I heard the MC saying, "Present the lucky winner, Mrs. Xenia Donahue of Great Falls, Montana. Mrs. Donahue." To a fanfare, a little dumpy woman teetered out. I read the cards again. They still matched the one in my hand. I said, "Dad, what happened? That's my slogan." "You didn't listen." "They've cheated me." "Be quiet and listen." As we explained earlier, in the event of duplicate entries, priority goes to the one postmarked first. Any remaining tie is settled by time of arrival at the contest office. Our winning slogan was submitted by 11 contestants. To them go the first 11 prizes. Tonight we have with us the 6 top winners for the trip to the moon, the weekend in a satellite space station, the jet flight around the world, the flight to Antarctica, the beaten by a postmark, a postmark. Sorry we can't have every one of the winners with us tonight. To the rest, this comes as a surprise. The MC looked at his watch. Right this minute, in 1,000 homes across the land, right this second, there is a lucky knock at the lucky door of some loyal friend of Skyway. There was a knock at Our door. I fell over my feet. Dad answered. There were three men, an enormous crate, and a Western Union messenger singing about Skyway soap. Somebody said, "Is this where Clifford Russell lives?" Dad said, "Yes." "Will you sign for this?" "What is it?" "It just says this side up. Where do you want it?" Dad passed the receipt to me and I signed somehow. Dad said, "Will you put it in the living room, please?" They did and left, and I got a hammer and side cutters. It looked like a coffin, and I could have used one. I got the top off. A lot of packing got all over Mother's rugs. At last we were down to it. It was a spacesuit. Not much as spacesuits go these days. It was an obsolete model that Skyway Soap had bought as surplus material. The 10th to 100th prizes were all spacesuits. But it was a real one, made by Goodyear, with air conditioning by York and auxiliary equipment by General Electric. Its instruction manual and maintenance and service log were with it, and it had racked up more than 800 hours in rigging the second satellite station. I felt better. This was no phony. This was no toy. It had been out in space even if I had not. But I would someday. I'd learn to use it, and someday I'd wear it on the naked face of the moon. Dad said, "Maybe we'd better carry this to your workshop, eh, Kit?" Mother said, "There's no rush, dearest. Don't you want to try it on, Clifford?" I certainly did. Dad and I compromised by toting the crate and packing out to the barn. When we came back, a reporter from the Clarion was there with a photographer. The paper had known I was a winner before I did, which didn't seem right. They wanted pictures, and I didn't mind. I had an awful time getting into it. Dressing in an upper berth is a cinch by comparison. The photographer said, "Just a minute, kid. I've seen him do it at Wright Field. Mind some advice?" No. I mean, yes, tell me. You slide in like an Eskimo climbing into a kayak, then wiggle your right arm in. It was fairly easy that way, opening front gaskets wide and sitting down in it, though I almost dislocated a shoulder. There were straps to adjust for size, but we didn't bother. He stuffed me into it, zippered the gaskets, helped me to my feet, and shut the helmet. It didn't have air bottles, and I had to live on the air inside while he got three shots. By then, I knew the suit had seen service. It smelled like dirty socks. I was glad to get the helmet off. Just the same, it made me feel good to wear it, like a spacer. They left, and presently we went to bed, leaving the suit in the living room. Around midnight, I cat footed down and tried it on again. The next morning, I moved it out to my shop before I went to work. Mr. Charton was diplomatic. He just said he'd like to see my spacesuit when I had time. Everybody knew about it. My picture was on the front page of the Clarion, along with the Pikes Peak hill climb and the holiday fatalities. The story had been played for laughs, but I didn't mind. I had never really believed I would win, and I had an honest to goodness spacesuit, which was more than my classmates had. That afternoon, Dad brought me a special delivery letter from Skyway Soap. It enclosed a property title to one suit, pressure, serial number so and so, ex USAF. The letter started with congratulations and thanks, but the last paragraphs meant something. Skyway Soap realizes that your prize may not be of immediate use to you. Therefore, as mentioned in paragraph 4A of the rules, Skyway offers to redeem it for a cash premium of $500. To avail yourself of this privilege, you should return the pressure suit via express collect to Goodyear Corporation, Special Appliances Division, Attention Salvage, Akron, Ohio, on or before the 15th of September. Skyway Soap hopes you have enjoyed our grand contest as much as we have enjoyed having you, and hopes that you will retain your prize long enough to appear with it on your local television station in a special Skyway Jubilee program. A fee of $50 will be paid for this appearance. Your station manager will be in touch with you. We hope that you will be our guest. All good wishes from Skyway, the soap as pure as the sky itself. I handed it to Dad. He read it and handed it back. I said, "I suppose I should." He said, "I see no harm. Television leaves no external scars." "Oh, that. Sure, that's easy money. But I meant I really ought to sell the suit back to them." I should have felt happy since I needed the money, while I needed a spacesuit the way a pig needs a pipe organ. But I didn't, even though I had never had $500 in my life. Son, any statement that starts, I really ought to, is suspect. It means you haven't analyzed your motives. But $500 is tuition for a semester, almost, which has nothing to do with the case. Find out what you want to do, then do it. Never talk yourself into doing something you don't want. Think it over. He said goodbye and left. I decided it was foolish to burn my bridges before I crossed them. The spacesuit was mine until the middle of September, even if I did the sensible thing. By then, I might be tired of it. But I didn't get tired of it. A spacesuit is a marvelous piece of machinery, a little space station with everything miniaturized. Mine was a chrome plated helmet and shoulder yoke, which merged into a body of silicone, asbestos, and glass fiber cloth. This hide was stiff except at the joints. They were the same rugged material, but were constant volume. When you bent a knee, a bellows arrangement increased the volume over the knee cap as much as the space back of the knee was squeezed. Without this, a man wouldn't be able to move. The pressure inside, which can add up to several tons, would hold him rigid as a statue. These volume compensators were covered with dural armor. Even the finger joints had little dural plates over the knuckles. It had a heavy glass fiber belt with clips for tools, and there were the straps to adjust for height and weight. There was a backpack, now empty, for air bottles, and zippered pockets inside and out for batteries and such. The helmet swung back, taking a bib out of the yoke with it, and the front opened with two gasketed zippers. This left a door you could wiggle into. The helmet clamped and zippers closed it, and it was impossible to open the suit with pressure inside. Switches were mounted on the shoulder yoke and on the helmet. The helmet was monstrous. It contained a drinking tank, pill dispensers, 6 on each side, a chin plate on the right to switch radio from receive to send, another on the left to increase or decrease flow of air, an automatic polarizer for the face lens, microphone and earphones, space for radio circuits in a bulge back of the head, and an instrument board arched over the head. The instrument dials read backwards because they were reflected in an inside mirror in front of the wearer's forehead at an effective 14 inches from the eyes. Above the lens or window, there were twin headlights. On top were two antennae, a spike for broadcast and a horn that squirted microwaves like a gun. You aimed it by facing the receiving station. The horn antenna was armored except for its open end. This sounds as crowded as a lady's purse, but everything was beautifully compact. Your head didn't touch anything when you looked out the lens, but you could tip your head back and see reflected instruments, or tilt it down and turn it to work chin controls, or simply turn your neck for water nipple or pills. In all remaining space, sponge rubber padding kept you from banging your head no matter what. My suit was like a fine car, its helmet like a Swiss watch. But its air bottles were missing. So was radio gear except for built-in antennas. Radio beacon and emergency radar target were gone, pockets inside and out were empty, and there were no tools on the belt. The manual told what it ought to have. It was like a stripped car. I decided I just had to make it work right. First, I swabbed it out with Clorox to kill the locker room odor. Then I got to work on the air system. It's a good thing they included that manual. Most of what I thought I knew about spacesuits was wrong. A man uses 3 pounds of oxygen a day, pounds mass, not pounds per square inch. You'd think a man could carry oxygen for a month, especially out in space where mass has no weight, or on the moon where 3 pounds weighs only half a pound. Well, that's okay for space stations or ships or frogmen. They run air through soda lime to take out carbon dioxide and breathe it again, but not spacesuits. Even today, people talk about the bitter cold of outer space, but space is a vacuum. And if vacuum were cold, how could a thermos jug keep hot coffee hot? Vacuum is nothing. It has no temperature, it just insulates. 3/4 of your food turns into heat, a lot of heat, enough each day to melt 50 pounds of ice and more. Sounds preposterous, doesn't it? But when you have a roaring fire in the furnace, you are cooling your body. Even in the winter, you keep a room about 30 degrees cooler than your body. When you turn up a furnace's thermostat, you are picking a more comfortable rate for cooling. Your body makes so much heat you have to get rid of it, exactly as you have to cool a car's engine. Of course, if you do that too fast, say in a sub zero wind, you can freeze. But the usual problem in a spacesuit is to keep from being boiled like a lobster. You've got vacuum all around you, and it's hard to get rid of heat. Some radiates away, but not enough. And if you are in sunlight, you pick up still more. This is why spaceships are polished like mirrors. So, what can you do? Well, you can't carry 50-pound blocks of ice. You get rid of heat the way you do on Earth by convection and evaporation. You keep air moving over you to evaporate sweat and cool you off. Oh, they'll learn to build spacesuits that recycle like a spaceship, but today the practical way is to let used air escape from the suit, flushing away sweat and carbon dioxide and excess heat while wasting most of the oxygen. There are other problems. The 15 pounds per square inch around you includes 3 pounds of oxygen pressure. Your lungs can get along on less than half that, but only an Indian from the high Andes is likely to be comfortable on less than 2 oxygen pounds per pressure. 9 tenths of a pound is the limit. Any less than 9 tenths of a pound won't force oxygen into the blood. That's about the pressure on the top of Mount Everest. Most people suffer from hypoxia, oxygen shortage, long before this, so better to use 2 pounds per square inch of oxygen. Mix an inert gas with it because pure oxygen can cause a sore throat or make you drunk or even cause terrible cramps. Don't use nitrogen, which you've breathed all your life, because it will bubble in your blood if pressure drops and cripple you with the bends. Use helium, which doesn't. If it gives you a squeaky voice, who cares? You can die from oxygen shortage, be poisoned by too much oxygen, be crippled by nitrogen, drown in or be acid poisoned by carbon dioxide, or dehydrate and run a killing fever. When I finished reading that manual, I didn't see how anybody could stay alive anywhere, much less in a spacesuit. But a spacesuit was in front of me that had protected a man for hundreds of hours in empty space. And we'll follow Kip's adventures with his new toy next time.